Cervical Instability community, welcome. I have a very positive update for you all today about somebody who's done a program with Chong and has resolved their condition, and I'm very glad to be able to share it with you. If you're not sure who I am, if it's the first time you're seeing me, hello, my name is Oliver James. I'm from Australia. I had cervical instability. I tried a bunch of different things that didn't work, and then I went really deep into fascia research and came across Chong Z, who I did a program with, and I was able to resolve my condition, get rid of all of my symptoms, and return to a normal way of life. I actually recently, a couple months ago, was just at the Fascia Research Congress with Chong and all the other fascia researchers as we continue to contribute to the fascia research, which I'll talk a little bit more about in this video as well with Chong's own clinical trials. But this video today is about a girl who went through Chong's program. She has done a testimonial, but she didn't want to share that publicly. Now, talking to a lot of people who are in this chronic pain community and also understanding my own story, I get it if people get a good result and don't want to be publicly known and publicly share their pain and the trauma that they went through, because it is very personal to them. Once you get past that, you kind of just want to move on. Like, you don't really want to reconnect with it. And I can also understand that as well, because I don't particularly like talking about what I went through. I don't like bringing it up. I just like getting on with life. However, it is important that people understand that there are other opportunities out there and other options and a science that supports why people are having these symptoms. And it's not just in your mind. You're not just crazy, particularly when scans don't show up that there's any damage or that there's anything wrong. It's not just in your head. There is a fascia science that can tell you and explain why some of these things are happening, or why all of these things are happening. So I've watched this individual's testimonial. I will share what they said so that they don't have to share themselves publicly. This individual had a car accident and then had a whiplash injury from surfing and suffered more than 2 years of issues. They thought they might have had POTS. They had a lot of the symptoms from POTS, and they had trouble with things even like walking up their own driveway. That was a challenge for them. So that's to the point that they degenerated to over 2 years. There was a lot of dizziness there, some balance issues, and a lot, of course, of head and neck pain. There was a lot of heart racing and a lot of nervousness about when some of these symptoms might flare up as well. This person was also not able to go to college, which obviously is a big thing for them because they obviously wanted to be able to do that and, as I said, live a normal life. So after 2 years of these issues, they saw my post on Facebook, they watched some of my videos, we had a conversation, then they booked an assessment with Chong. Then they started their one-on-one program, which goes for 12 weeks. Now, Chong was, of course, doing hyperarch fascia training, his individual work, and working one-on-one with this individual and to make sure that they get a good result. It was around week 7 or week 8 where she said she had some big changes and some bigger improvements, particularly around the brain fog. This is when things really started to clear and she could see, oh wow, like this is really starting to help. Now, this is just goes to show this isn't some quickly fix yourself type of thing. This isn't a golden bullet. This isn't some magic injection that you're going to take and be fine. It requires a lot of work. So it took 7 to 8 weeks of really direct one-on-one training and a lot of dedication and a lot of time away from the one-on-one sessions, doing the homework, doing the things that Chong needs you to do throughout the week, your program, to actually see some of these changes. Of course, everyone experiences changes at a different rate. I experienced them pretty consistently throughout my program, exponentially getting better. But some people, it takes a few weeks before they see some bigger changes, but then it really starts to take off, like this person, for example. She said when she started to feel more glute connection, that this is when her body really started to stabilize and these symptoms really started to disappear. Now, for those people that are not so much aware, the reason why Chong talks a lot about this foot to glute connection is because this is the primary connections through our body which stabilize us. Now, on one extreme end of the spectrum, we have people that have chronic pain. On the other extreme end of the spectrum, we have elite level high performance athletes, and Chong reverse engineered what makes these athletes special, and it's these fascial connections from the feet to the glutes. Now, you might be wondering why the glutes. That's because they're made up of more than 85% fascial inserts, so it's got a really high volume of fascial inserts where these fascial connections go to the feet, which of course are your foundation, and connect into. So it's his work to increase this connection to create stability throughout the body. Of course, we have lots of other fascia lines throughout the body. I often like to send people these images so then they can kind of visualize this, that your neck is not just between here and here. your structures of your neck actually flow throughout your body. So you have your dorsal fascial line, which I can show you here, and you have your arm, shoulder fascial lines as well. These are fascial lines connecting into the neck, which are very significant. Not only do the glutes have a very large amount of fascia, also your lats, your latissimus dorsi muscle does as well. So we talk about the foot to glute connection, but we also talk about the hand to lat fascia connection, which also runs through your neck. So keep that in mind. We're not doing isolated neck movements. We're training fascia's properties and behaviors to be able to regenerate and remodel the damage to the fascial internal foundation through fascia's properties. So we're using things like mechanical tension to then kick off this cellular response, which is going to physically change the cells of the fascia. If you want to learn more about this, I have a lot of content on this page, so you can go through those. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on that now. And if you want to learn more about fascia in general and Chong's work and see more than 300 questions answered, Chong has a Patreon page. It's only a couple of dollars, and you can go in there and you can search for the cervical instability content that we have made, and you can learn more about fascia and the science behind why Chong does what he does. As the program went on beyond the 7 and 8 week mark, Chong, in this testimonial, they were talking backwards and forwards, the client, her mum, and Chong, about the fact that the dizziness slowly went away, and so did the balance issues. And around about that 7, 8, 9 week mark, that's really when none of those dizziness or balance issues detected. The other big thing from this testimonial was the fact that this girl's HRV had improved massively. So HRV is heart rate variability, and heart rate variability is something that was spoken a lot about at the Fascia Research Congress. This is a very good indicator of where your body is at when it comes to recovery and your fascial condition and your nervous system. So when your heart rate variability is low, it means you have a very low level or low ability to actually recover. It means you're in a very high stress. This might not be psychological stress, this might be physiological stress from your body being chronically damaged. Now, this girl's heart rate variability nearly doubled. It went from around the 50s to the 90s when she was fully recovered. So that is absolutely huge. And that just goes to show that her body was able to relax because the damage had been fixed, the symptoms had been fixed, and therefore her body condition is now back to normal. It was really interesting in this testimonial to hear the girl talk about her experience with HFT, and she had an analogy which I've never heard before, and that is that she said HFT feels like an internal chiropractor. Now, to put this into perspective, in my communication with her before the program, she said that she'd been to a lot of chiropractors and some of them had caused more damage to her. So of course, going to this program, a lot of people think, oh, like I don't want people touching my neck. With HFT, it's all you doing the exercises. Nobody has to touch your body to get a result. So you know that there's not going to be any additional damage being occurred. But she said that it felt like an internal chiropractor as the fascial lines and connections were retensioning and remodeling. It felt like everything was clicking and just moving back into place naturally without any force or manual adjustment. The other cool thing was she said she can now open jars on her own, which is awesome because grip strength is obviously also connected to fascial strength as well. And the last thing was her mum said the results are amazing. They were very happy with the program, and now she's back at college and she's able to live a normal life. The other thing I wanted to mention was that she also said that at the beginning she could barely walk up her driveway, and now she's doing thousands and thousands, I think up to about 10,000 steps per day. So that is obviously a huge difference throughout the 12-week program. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Chong's clinical trials. So Chong has just finished up doing a randomized controlled clinical trial, the highest level of evidence that you can do that was third-party tested on his specific training, on his work. So this is to get it scientifically proven. We've already had hundreds of testimonials across dozens of different types of chronic pain and injuries, people getting successful positive results. We've also had multiple people go through with cervical instability, being able to return to a normal quality of life. And now we have the scientific data. So this trial has finished. The research paper is currently being written, and this will be published very, very soon in the beginning now of 2026. So when this comes out, this is obviously going to be a big deal so that those people that want to see scientific proof, they have a direct study from Chong's work. Now, this isn't a small thing. Clinical trials are very expensive. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, especially to get it third-party tested. So you can see that there is no bias here. But this is huge for HFT. The preliminary results are fantastic. I've talked to Chong about this, and it's going to be something that we talk about a lot. So for those people that have been thinking, is this legit or not? We have a clinical study. It will be out very soon. However, with that obviously comes a huge jump in demand. There is going to be new phases that we're taking hyperarch fascia training into. So right now, before the clinical trial has actually been published, is a fantastic time for those people that are thinking about doing programs to start a program. Because when the trial is published, of course, the price is going to go up. As the demand goes up, there is only one Chong, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. In saying that, we have also had about 3 or 4 other people start the program since I have made my previous video. So there are people currently now going through a program, and some of these people have already had some early signs of improvement, which is fantastic. So we'll see how they go at the end of their 12 weeks, and hopefully I'll be able to sit down and have a chat to them and actually share their personal results. Anyway, if you want to do a program, you can message me on Instagram, you can send me an email. And if you just want to learn more about fascia, if you're not in the financial position to do a program, this is why I've helped Chong set up this Patreon page. We have hundreds of fascia lessons. Chong has answered hundreds of questions and he's explained his work. There are some exercises in there that you can try. And if you click on one of the recent videos that I posted, I interviewed a guy who did the Patreon exercises, who had suspected cervical instability, and 80 or 90% fixed his symptoms just by himself. Now, of course, we're not guaranteeing everyone is going to have that result. However, if you do not have the financial capacity to do a program, or you're just getting your funds together, start doing the basic exercises. Obviously, listen to your body, follow the instructions. However, this is a fantastic place for you to start at a very low entry cost, and it's a great place for you to learn from the collection of science from all the other fascia researchers that I met at the Fascia Research Congress. Chong talks about all this different research so you can understand it a bit deeper. Anyway, fantastic. I'm very happy to hear about this person's results, and we're going to keep collecting case studies of people that have cervical instability who then go through this program and get awesome results. Hopefully it is you that is next, and I'll speak to you soon.